a brand new planet. We're continuing our journey through the single player of FFs. FF5 is our final one of the main franchise, and where we left off, we had just followed our hero, Galoof, the champion of the people. This is going to be a rough one, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a rough one. It was weird arriving on the new planet because it's very similar to ours, and we've got to hunt down what's going on. I knew because we had a three-party team that we're going to find Galoof pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we did get captured by X-Death immediately and end up in prison. And as we were there, Galoof realized it, like, X-Death is one of the better written villains in the single-player FFs. Everything X-Death does really ties into a more intricate storyline. So X-Death just has us, but then he shows this giant mirror, which then reflects to Galoof's castle. We find out that Galoof is, you know, royalty. He's Lord Galoof, King Galoof, whatever you want to say, with Kryl. As Galoof was about to lead the charge onto X-Death. And X-Death is like, but I've got your friends and I know you're a good guy. It's very much Joker and Batman, where the Joker is like, I know what you're going to do because you have codes, you have rules you have to follow, and you're a good person, and I can manipulate that to no end. And I'm like, although the name is stupid, I'm liking X-Death more and more. But as he reveals that he has our friends, he has Bart's and co, and Galoof can't possibly attack anymore, he needs to go rescue them. And in doing so, plays right into X-Death's hands, unleashing a giant barrier around X-Death's castle, which prevents everybody from being able to get in. And that leads us on our next journey, which is like, how do we bring down the barrier? Now we're in Galoof's world, though, we can meet the previous Warriors of Light, the Dawn heroes, essentially, who sealed X-Death away long ago, and including our werewolf friend. And our werewolf friend is all hidden away. This is something I appreciate about FF is rapidly becoming one of, if not, it's right near the top of my favorite Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy V is rising right up. There's so much going on all the time that's carefully planned out. It's not wasted. It's not just like this random thing that happens. Besides the fact that we constantly throw away our means of travel and transport, it's all really well considered as to when you're going to meet these characters. There's hints at them so often, and these mysteries just constantly. There's always a mystery about what's going on. And I never really feel like I did in FF3, which is like, where do we go? What do we do? It all sort of logically plays out where you're supposed to go. So we do meet our Wolf Lord, and there's a sort of betrayal going on there. He's not happy with Galoof, but we resolved that, and our journey goes on there, which was pretty nice. We've got to bring down the barrier. And in order to do this, we need to find Guido, who is somebody who would probably know about the barrier, but as we go there, X-Death, like, destroys, as soon as we arrive, the X-Death destroys everything and crumbles it down into the ocean, which ultimately, in a really nice way, after we do our assault, leads us to having a submarine. And I was mind blown by this point. I was utterly mind blown. I really was. As the story took us along this journey where everything we're doing is into X-Death's, throwing ourselves into X-Death's hands, is we get another map. We're underwater now. We're in a submarine. I was like, this is insane. But it definitely felt like we were getting to the end of the game. That's what it felt like. As we reapproached into Guido, and Guido is wise. He's a little turtle friend, which was phenomenal. He's a little turtle bro. And he's like, okay, look, you need to go here. You need to uncover what needs to happen and get on with defeating X-Death. You need to get to X-Death Castle. I'll get you in, and we can begin the assault to kill X-Death, which is our big mission. We're going to defeat X-Death. And I was like, wow, we're getting towards the end of the game now. I had a bit of a spoiler as I was assaulting X-Death Castle, in that as I opened a chest, an achievement popped up from Steam, and I'm really not a fan that this happened, where it said, you've opened 50% of chests. I was like, there is no freaking way we are only halfway through this game. There's no way. There's absolutely no. I'm actually going to check Steam as I'm talking to you. We are 30 hours into Final Fantasy V as I'm recording this. The total playtime I had with Final Fantasy VI, for example, was 36 hours, and Final Fantasy IV was 22. I was like, have I missed something? Because I had a general feeling we're approaching X-Death Castle. It kind of fits if we go from 4 to 5 to 6 that this, in some sort of scaling issue is like, we're probably at the end of the game. And then this achievement went, you've only opened 50% of things. I'm like, oh, completed 50% of the bestiary, actually. So I've only seen half the monsters in the game. And I'm like, Huh. I'll be honest with you guys. I labeled my stream as finale. It definitely felt like we were getting to the end of the game. But that is absolutely seemingly not the case. I was like, oh my god. Well, what can happen then? I was also like more intrigued than anything as to what can even happen from this point onwards. Because we've already had the second world, which is typical in like a lot of the FFs is you get the second world map, and we've already done that. Although admittedly there wasn't a great deal on the second one. So I was like, okay. But we've also now had a submarine underwater map, which admittedly was empty. And I was like, okay, what's going to go on here? But either way, we fought our way through. This actually was time for a lot of job introspection in the game. Because I wasn't happy with several of my characters in terms of what they were doing. Like, Bart's was like a ninja. He's been a knight. He's been several things. But he, one, doesn't put out good DPS. He also doesn't provide much in the way of buffs. And what's happening at this point in the game is I'm very rapidly and constantly running out of mana. Because I basically have Faris being both my healer and my DPS caster. It's too much because they need a lot of healing and they take a lot of damage. And certainly if I have to start throwing protects and things out. I'm quite happy with having the Time Mage. That's working out pretty well, is having a Time Mage, getting Haystaga out. I've unlocked Haystaga now, which is fantastic. So I thought, I'll tell you what I'll do, is I'll swap one of the characters over to Red Mage, and I'll try out some of the other jobs. Like, Galoof is staying as a monk, because if he wears a shirt, I'm uninstalling the game. But it was time to try out a bunch of other jobs. So I tried a few things out. So I tried Mystic Knight for a while. I was like, maybe that's like a caster and a knight. That could work out really well. But after playing with that for a little bit, it turned out that Mystic Knight just puts like weapon imbues on. Like fired bio, you can put the Black Mage spells onto your weapon and get a damage buff. But it wasn't really doing anything. It takes a turn to buff your weapon, so that character is permanently useless on turn 1, which never feels good. And I want to point something out here before a lot of you are like certainly overly familiar with the game. You know, you might have replayed through Final Fantasy V many times, watched guides, watched speedrunners and things like that. I'm very sure there's a lot of jobs in this game that actually, in like certain combinations, do extreme damage, extreme whatever. But in the short term, don't really pay off. I'm looking for that short-term payoff here. I'm not looking to speedrun the game. I'm looking for each of my characters to feel fun. So I went double monk. I went double monk. Unfortunately, I had no armor, so it was kind of weak sauce. But I was playing around with these things as we get to Exdeath. I'm defeating Greg several times. Getting to Exdeath Castle, I had what I think is the final showdown with Greg, where it was a story being... I love what they've done with Gilgamesh in this game, is that he's kind of a fool. You know, he's very similar to the other versions of Gilgamesh we meet in the rest of the Final Fantasy universe. He's massive, he's strong, he's powerful, but he's also like a doofus, and he keeps goofing up. And I love the story being told in this fight is like, I have the most powerful sword in the game. Behold Excalibur. And he pulls out Excalibur and he's ready to destroy you. And then he hits you and he just does no damage with it. And then Gilgamesh is having this argument with himself of like, I've been fooled, I've been tricked, this weapon sucks. And it's really funny while you're defeating him. And Exdeath comes in and says, you're a clown, I'm sick of you, and I'm going to banish you off to another realm. And he does. Gilgamesh is sent off to another dimension. And obviously, with the stream and everyone thinking of it as like, oh, he's off to the other Final Fantasies where Gilgamesh appears. I'll see you again in FF14 or whatever. And then it drops something that I've been taunted with for many years, which is, since we started playing Final Fantasy, is Excalibur. And it's like, it actually does show like 100 plus attack, or does it? And I was like, okay, we have to try this weapon out on the next like encounter that we fight. Let's see what it does. So I equipped Excalibur. The next fight was against Exdeath himself. So I faced Exdeath with Excalibur, which of course hits for 1 damage. Rendering Bart entirely useless, completely, who had it equipped, as I'd made him a knight again at this point to just try and get him to be somewhat useful. Needless to say, we wiped. But learnt a lot on the first pull. This fight with Exdeath, which felt to me was the final fight of the game. Spoilers, obviously it isn't. But I was like, okay, we're in the final fight of the game. But I've just had this message saying we're only halfway through, so I was skeptical, right? I was skeptical. I came back and I fought Exdeath. This was easily the best fight we've had in the game so far. This was incredibly technical from a lot of standpoints. Exdeath has tons of abilities that can be outplayed in certain ways. And what I ended up doing was utilizing a combination of high potions, because I needed the DPS to come from Galoof and my Black Mage but the only things that could do substantial damage. They could do combined around 3 to 4k per round. And then utilize the other two characters using time magic and rebuffing with the red mage to keep buffs up because he has Dispel, and also float, and then using actually my knight, which did little DPS, to be off healing with high potions, led to a really technical fight. And I've said this many times, I actually don't think I would have been able to beat Final Fantasy V as a kid. Some of these fights are really rough, and it actually gets rougher past this point. Now is the worst thing ever. I saw this coming. I really did. I saw this coming as soon as this cutscene started playing out. And I was like, I can't believe this is about to happen. One, the game is definitely not over. But they're going to kill Galuf. And they did. And the only worst thing that I could think of that is my shirtless god Galuf was going to be replaced by Kryl. I love Kryl in Final Fantasy XIV, but I love Galuf in Final Fantasy V. And they killed my boy. I have to say, as disappointed as it was, the cutscene and what happened with Galuf was really touching. Like, compared to a lot of the deaths that happen in single-player FFs, where I'm like, I don't care. I really cared about this character. And they did so many wonderful things, allowing you to play him solo for certain parts, having one-on-one fights with certain enemies with just Galuf. They worked this into the game so well to really make you care about Galuf. And I got very lucky here by making Galuf a monk, which is a very strong character. So not only was Galuf integral to the story, but he was also my strongest DPS character, and I adored having Galuf. He carried us through so many fights. And his death was horrible. And I knew what they were going to do is, like, I've leveled this guy. They're going to have to transfer that experience somewhere, and they're going to give it to Kryl. And Kryl's now a part of the team. And I tried Kryl as a monk, but in a really weird twist of fate, literally like 3 fights after, Kryl capped monk. And that was it. Kryl was done. Kryl's like mastered monk, and so we're going to change Kryl around to some different things. I've tried her as a bard. I've tried her as a few different things. I'm going to mess around with the jobs a hell of a lot more. But now we have what happens now, because we defeat X-Death, right? That's the last boss of the game, and we won. And we return to our castle, and everything's nice. And Sarissa becomes a princess, no longer Faris. But you know something's wrong. And this was cool, because they didn't blow their load early. They knew something's not right. You know, they know that you as the player know something's not right. And nobody's really saying what it is. Like, some people are saying the sky is slightly different. But we're all celebrating, we're partying. Kryl's upset about Galuf. Excuse me. So you and Bart's are like, okay, let's go and get Boko, the Chocobo, which is a really touching story, is that because we abandoned Boko at the very beginning of the game, but Boko's got a wife, Boko's got children on the way. I assume Boko's going to die at some point because Final Fantasy likes its darkness. And we'll go and see what's going on and explore a little bit because something feels wrong. And nobody's really pointing out. Now, the stupid thing is, if you open the world map, you can see that the world has changed entirely. Like, completely changed. But then story, in talking to people, it's not revealed quickly. In fact, it's about 20-25 minutes of, like, something's wrong somewhere, and you're kind of trying to figure it out. But you are just rolling as a party of just you and Kryl trying to figure things out. And as time goes on, you drop down a hole, and then Faris, who doesn't want to be a princess, comes and rescues you. So you're a 3-man party, and you stay as a 3-man party for a while, and then it dawns on you that the world has changed. You find a town, which then you, like, look around, because they're saying, like, this didn't used to be. There's a cave that's appeared to the west, and you go out, and that's when you really look at the world map. You're like, oh, God, the whole world has changed. And it's such a nice way of revealing that, yeah, the whole world has changed. It's just that not everybody can see the whole world, but you can. And this is weird. And as you go and explore, you end up finding Guido again as the turtle who's living forever, who tells you, yeah, what's happened is he's got the crystals and he's alive. And it's really, really bad now. And the only way of dealing with this is actually to find the 12... and a whole new story opens up. We've got to find 12 legendary weapons. We've got to do all that. And I was like, what the hell? It's like the game started fresh now. We've got a whole new world. X-Death's still alive. We now have to find the 12 weapons of legend. And all the worlds are now merged together. into some interesting way. And our first stop in order to do this was to go to the desert pyramid. And I'd forgotten by this point. It's like, oh yeah, we couldn't get in the pyramid. Now we can get in the pyramid. These dungeons are really hard, like super, super hard. Enemies that just straight one-shot you. Again, was messing with jobs to try and find the right setup that worked for me. Massive of exploration. Mana becoming an issue. Although I did do a puzzle that found me the gold hairpin so that mana costs are cut in half. Oh, blessed be the game. Absolutely tremendous. And this was a 3-man party. So you're not even at full strength and you're doing very hard dungeons. Like, FF5 does not mess around with its difficulty. It wants you to be, like, dying. It really wants that to happen. Especially as you're going in blind. And working through all this was really tough. Fought some wonderful bosses, defeated the pyramid, and as I came out, finally had the wind, the wind dragon, bring Lenny back to us. And I was like, okay, we're back to 4-man, but no, Lenny has been inhabited by Melusine, and X-Death is manipulating us and trying to get our own people to kill us. Very shades of FF14. And cleared that out, so now we've got the full team back finally after probably 10 hours of play that I'm summing up in this video for you. We're now back to full strength, but that's where I'm leaving it for today in terms of my progress. But I have to say, easily FF5 from storytelling to soundtrack to pacing is rapidly rising in my opinion. There's a lot of there are a couple of moments where I'm like, okay, this death is also kind of funny, but I could feel if I wasn't like streaming it and I wasn't part of I wasn't like older and more seasoned as a gamer, it's like this would be really frustrating. So that's the only thing holding back, is I can imagine a lot of people getting very frustrated with 5, such as 1,000 needles popping off if you don't kill certain enemies in a couple of turns, or that some of the enemies in the pyramids can summon the bug monster, which has level 3 flare, which just like one-shots 3 out of 4 of your party depending on their current HP. Stuff like that does feel a little awkward, especially if you don't have the save system that is in the remaster. That could be awful. So that's the only thing that I'm considering with my rankings here. But I have to say, so much good story here. And I have no idea how big this game is. This might be a 40+ hour game, of which, as I said, we're about 28 hours in. And I'll see where it goes. But stay tuned for the next update, and we'll see exactly where this game takes us. Thanks, guys.